What is up, everybody? Thanks for joining me tonight. Got a great show for you. Joining me tonight is going to be Chase, our data analyst at Do Champions. He's also the host of Chase and Data Thursday nights on the Do Champions Network. If you haven't seen the show, definitely check it out. Tonight we'll be discussing some overall draft combine thoughts, just briefly. Then we'll go over the NFL calendar and what we have next. And then we're going to do the deep dive into NFL free agency. I want to continue our series where we've been diving into Bills position groups that need to improve the most before the 2025 season begins. That's D tackle, D end, wide receiver, and cornerback. Last week we focused on the draft prospects for D ends and D tackles, and this week I want to focus on the free agent and trade targets for the Bills. Since free agency is going to start March 10th. So got a really good show for you guys tonight. I'm excited to get it going. So let's roll right into it.
Come on, man. Only on Do Champion Network.
Everything you need, nothing you don't. Some may like if you just won't. Everything you need, nothing you don't. Some may like if you just won't. Buffalo blueprint for analytics and new shit. Check pen in hand, mic in his hand. Welcome to the Buffalo blueprint. Everything you need. Everything you need. Everything you need, nothing you don't. Some may like if you just won't. Everything you need, nothing you don't. Some may like if you just won't. Buffalo blueprint for analytics and new shit. Check pen in hand, mic in his hand. Welcome to the Buffalo blueprint. Everything you need. Everything you need.
All right. Let's do a quick message from our show sponsor, Mackenzie Farms and Happy Holiday Tree Farms. I want to thank them for supporting us all season long. It's sponsors like them that make this show possible. It gets us access to the data that I use. It also helps fund trips like NFL Combine, Senior Bowl, going to a couple Bills games in person, and then the equipment used to stream the show. So I want to thank our sponsor, Mackenzie Farms and Happy Holiday Tree Farms, and a quick message from our network sponsors.
For the best Italian food in Western New York, Elliot Apollos, call 716-825-3675. The Lardon Construction Group.
Fubo TV, the official streaming service of Do Champions. FanDuel, the official sportsbook of Do Champions.
For all your summertime needs, beauty pools, as well as kayak pools.
CX Chronicles, your total customer solutions focused manager. W.GG, the official energy drink of Do Champions.
Hey, Sons of Erie, our artwork looks better on your walls. Hamburg Brewing, please visit our tap room on Boston State Road, Hamburg, New York. And finally,
Fat Boy Surf Club for all your surfing needs.
All right, now that we got the business out of the way, let's get the show rolling. Let's welcome our guest on for tonight is Chase. Chase is one of our data analysts here at Do Champions. He's also the host of Chase and Data. Chase, thanks for joining me tonight.
What's up, man? Glad to be back yet again. It's like our fourth episode together, maybe fifth.
Yeah, man. We like to party.
Yeah, we get to talking and then we just don't stop. They tend to run a little long, but that's okay.
That's the problem. That's the problem. Whenever we get together, the show ends up going on. I think we have like 25, almost maybe 27 free agent and trade targets to talk about tonight. So we'll dive right in. First thing I want to start though is the NFL calendar. Eventually I'll make one and have a graphic for us, but little lazy. I had to make like 20 other graphics for tonight. So I'll get to that eventually. But right now is the final day of the NFL Scouting Combine. It's been going on the last week. The next major date is going to be the 4th. So March 4th is the franchise tag deadline at 4 p.m. Eastern time. That's Tuesday, and we're already starting to hear some news about that. So you're going to hear it's going to be used as to put pressure on players to try to make a deal sooner. You hear T. Higgins, Trey Smith, Osa Digizui from the Cowboys now might get tagged, so we'll talk about him later. So that's the next major one, March 4th. And then after that, March 10th at 12 p.m. Eastern Time is the start of the legal tampering period. So March 10th, 12 p.m. Eastern Time, that's when teams can start talking to agents and start making deals. Nothing can become official, though, until March 12th at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. So there's that awkward like 2 days of tampering that happens. But March 12th at 4 p.m. Eastern Time is the start of the 2025 league year. And that's when free agents can actually sign with teams. So that's the next major date. And then the last date in March to worry about is March 30th. That is the start of the annual league meetings in Palm Beach, Florida. That's where you hear like rules changes. That's where the special teams stuff, the kickoff rule changed, stuff like that. So there is usually important stuff that comes out of that meeting. And that runs from March 30th to April 12th or April 2nd. Sorry. So a couple important dates coming up on our calendar, but let's focus in on the first one here for tonight, Chase. Did you have a chance to watch any of the draft combine coverage?
Yeah. So I mean, I try to watch as many at least of the 40 times. That's the only thing that I really care a lot for. You can go back and watch film, but like getting that precise number for those 40 times stand out for sure. It's probably everybody's go-to as part of the combine for sure. Some of the things that stood out, I tweeted about it was Tez Johnson, as small as he is. I think he was, 154 pounds. And then what he run, a 4.58?
I think his second time was lower. I want to say he was low 4.5s.
But still,
but I agree with you. That's, he's got to be 4.4 at worst or better at that weight. There's no evidence. There's nothing that shows that a guy that size running, above a 4.5 that can play in the NFL. There's just not anyone that can do it. It doesn't mean that, a new precedent can't be set. But yeah, that's a good call out. That was huge for him to run that slow. His pro day is going to be big. Agility drills, though, I think are really important. On film, he looks really quick. And that's going to be important for him staying out of, those big hits and staying out of trouble. But yeah, man, that's a good call. For a guy that small to run that slow is not good.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't imagine me at my size getting out there on the NFL field, obviously much slower, but, just getting hit any.
Yeah.
I mean, he was either the second smallest wide receiver or second smallest or lightest, like participant at the combine in like 25 years or something like that, or maybe all time. It was something ridiculous, but
he's really tiny.
I don't know. Maybe he'll do better at his pro day, but I mean, I don't think he's going to jump by a 10th of a second,
Yeah, and I mean, there were guys having him in like the third round in some of their mocks.
Yeah.
This is the kind of thing that could drop you, pretty far or even out of the draft just because there's no precedent. We talked about this on last week's show. Like the measurables are really important, and teams will set like a marker and they just won't budge on those. Like if a guy's arm length is too small or they run too slow or they do the 3-cone too slow, like that'll really bump them off their board or take them off completely. So yeah, that's a pretty big red flag. How about the Isaiah Bond run? Did you see that?
Yeah, I saw it, unfortunately.
He's saying he was going to run a 4-1 or 4.2, and he couldn't break a 4.4. I mean, 4.4 is fast. Don't get me wrong; like that is still flying, but not when you're talking about breaking the all-time record, right?
Yeah, because I was like, man, this guy, he's definitely going to make me, believe that it's going to happen. That he is going to somehow get that, break Xavier Worthy's thing, and then he just.
I was high on him too, man. Like I thought a lot of it, like from watching his tape this year, was more of a Quinn Ewers problem, and those two just missing connections. Like he was getting open deep, he was getting separation. I really liked him. I was hoping he'd be around in the second round for the Bills, and he might now. But I mean, there was a lot of talk about him being first round last year, and now I don't know. I mean, 4.4 is still fast. Don't get me wrong. Like, but for a guy pegged as a speed guy. Like that is a pretty big knock, and it makes it worse that you talked it up. I think if he hadn't said anything and he just ran a 4.4 flat, I think that's fine. Like people would
Yeah,
just been
yeah,
like,
yeah.
all right, like that's not slow. So that was another weird one for me. Some corners ran really fast. Harrison from Kentucky, Darian Porter. Like, dude, how are you almost 6'3" and like 200 pounds and you run a 4.3? Like, that
Ridiculous.
is insane. Um, so, yeah, there's some good stuff. Nothing like too groundbreaking, though. I don't know if guys like really moved around that much. Do you remember of anyone else that you think's going to move too much?
Emanwari, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, the safety from
Oh, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
from
Yep,
South
Nick.
Carolina that like
Yeah, he
was
was borderline first, and I think now he's
he
first. Like
solidified.
he's,
Yeah,
yeah, that's a good call. That's another dude who's over 200 pounds. I think he's close to
freak athlete.
220. Yeah, he's like 6'3",
Mm-hmm.
220, and he ran a 4.38. Is that what he ran? Or four?
Yeah, it was 4.3 something. It was
Yeah,
unheard of.
that's
Yeah.
that's crazy. So yeah, guys making good money. Pro days coming up. We'll have the dates for pro days where the Bills scouts are going to be going. We'll get that to you guys on social. But yeah, so
One
the
more that I
combine
thought
was
of,
good.
you
Go ahead.
know, I have a lot of or a few mocks that I've seen with Golden going to the
Yeah,
Bills, and
yeah,
I feel
dude.
like
He ain't.
he's not gonna make it.
I know that was sad. I didn't want to see him run that fast. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Golden from Texas, the wide receiver. We talked about him last week, and man, he killed it, dude. He ran a 4.38. Um, he's like 6'1", really good route runner, and there was talks of him maybe being at the back end of the first round, and it's not going to happen now. He's going to
No.
be, late teens or early 20s. I mean, there's talk of him being, it depends on what you like from a receiver, but him and Tet now being, co number ones. So
Yeah.
we'll see. There's some good depth though. I still like Trey Harris a lot. I thought Higgins ran really well from Iowa
Hmm.
State. So there's still some good talent out there.
For
But
sure.
let's get into the free agent targets. We'll start with those. We'll start with DNs, and then we'll go into trade candidates for DNs, and then we'll do D tackles, and then trade candidates for D tackles. So let's kick it off with some free agent targets, and we'll start with DN. So first up is a familiar face with a lot of Buffalo people. It's Khalil Mack. He's 33. He's going to be 34 by the start of the season. He's just coming off his best season since 2020, though. He's always been a top defensive end when it comes to run defense. Really stout there. He does create more pressures than sacks, though. But this past season, his numbers for pressures were down. So that's something to, I guess, to concern yourself with, maybe. I don't know with him. 33-year-old for a pass rusher, you start worrying about it. He's going to get into his 34th season. Is it another Von Miller type thing? He had 6 sacks last season on 54% of the snaps. He did average, though, 2.82 hurries a game in 23-24, and that is really good. 2.82 hurries puts him in the category of like TJ Watt and Hines Allen from the Jaguars. So you're talking like top 10 in football. Like really impressive for hurry numbers for last season. So he's still got some juice. And only 54% of the snaps, that's kind of what the Bills would want to do, I'm guessing, is somewhere between 54 and 60% of the snaps. So early projections I saw for contracts were anywhere from like 16, 17 million to 20 million a year for 3 years. What are your thoughts on Khalil Mack and where he is now and the fit for the Bills?
I mean, would he be a great addition? I'm sure, but I mean, for the money that you're probably gonna have to pay at the age that he's gonna be at, I mean, it's not very often that you see someone at that age replicate what they've done in their prime. It was, since 2000 and age 34 or older, edge player, rush player, having 6 or more sacks has happened 48 times. But I just don't see it. I mean, I'm sure you want more than 6 sacks if you're paying him the top dollar that you're wanting to pay him.
Yep.
But the flip side of that is, even though I'm kind of against it, he was number 2 in run D from the edge players per PFF. And I mean, that's what Buffalo, I feel, really needs. But again, it's too much money. I feel like there's a lot of other talent that we're going to discuss, but so he was not at the top of my list to be
Yeah, I
giving him the
think
money he wants.
he's kind of like that second tier guy, right? Like he's
Mhm.
if you miss out on, we're gonna talk about like what I would think are probably the top two guys here in a minute, but in free agency, and then if you missed out on the top trade guys, the big name trade guys, then he's someone maybe to go after because you could structure that contract where it's not that bad. And 20 million a year is not that big a deal versus the top guys who are going to be making over 30 million. And I think between, him and Rousseau, you could have a nice 1-2, but then you really have to nail down who your three is because I think you need a legit starting D end as your third D end. And so that's where you got to figure out something with one of these guys we'll talk about later. Like if you're going to sign Khalil Mack, you have to also sign one of these other guys in the bargain bin that we'll talk about, or you have to draft someone early as well because he only played 54% of the snaps last year. He's not going to play over 60. And I definitely think you're going to need someone else who can get in there and take snaps at a reasonably high level, right? Like you said, so he only had 6 sacks last year. Like I really think you're going to need him and another guy who can combine for, 15, I think would be like your goal between him and another guy. What are your thoughts on doing something like that?
I mean, so I went through and ranked these guys that we're going to discuss as far as the free agent DNs. I have him number 2 as who I would sign if I were the Bills, but I don't know. You're just paying. It's a lot of money for someone like you just got out
He's
of
going to be
the
34.
Von Miller
big
contract that you just gave a few years ago. You're going to turn around and do it again to someone who is past their prime.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I would be hesitant. Obviously, they're probably going to be all in on Myles Garrett. There's a few other choices or a few other pathways I would try to take before I lean on this.
Right. I think it really comes down to the contract with him. I think, because if you're going to set yourself up like you did with Vaughn, where you're locked in for at least 3 years, I don't know. I wouldn't want to sign up for that, right? But if you can do it like it's a 1 year, with void on the end, or a 2 year, that you can get out after the second year, or incentive laden, then I'm in, then I'm all for it. If you miss out on the big guys, right? I still think the number one option for the Bills is to try to trade for one of these big guys, but it takes 2 to tango, and you can't force those actions, right? Like a team has to want to. So we're looking at this like, if no one wants to trade any of the big guys, or they don't want to trade them, to the Bills, then who would we go after? I do like Khalil Mack, like you said, as your second choice, because you have to get a dude, and he's still a dude. He still commands attention, and I think paired up opposite Rousseau would be really nice. And I think for Rousseau's more of like your cleanup guy. He compresses the pocket more. He's got the long arms to finish. I think he needs a guy on the other side of him that can create havoc and create those hurries and those pressures. And that's what Khalil Mack does. And he still does that at a very high level. So I think that, those two together might be a really nice pair, because you get Mack creating pressure, and then you get, hopefully, the other guys cleaning it up, whether that's Ed Oliver or Greg Rousseau.
Yeah. I mean, the famous last words is, I wouldn't at this age for that price, but I'm sure the Bills, like I said, they probably want to try something else, but I don't think
at worst case, I hope they try this, right? Like I hope it's not like some bargain bin veteran and then they go into the draft and hope they get somebody, right? Like this should be worst case. You're signing him, and then you're gonna go try to get one of the someone in the draft or something as well. Like your plan cannot be just him.
You're waiting around for mid-season or something.
Exactly. All right, let's get into the next guy. Next guy is arguably the top guy on the market in free agency, and that's going to be Josh Sweat. He's going to be 28 years old by the start of the season. He's got 40 sacks over the last 5 years. He's not the best run defender, but really good pass rusher. He creates 2.48 pressures per game, so that's a really high clip, in the top 20, 25 in the league on defensive linemen. He's projected for 3 years, 56 million. He's also going to be the youngest on the market as far as top guys. And you might see, like, I don't know what the market's going to do, right? Like, this is a projection. He's clearly the top young guy that's produced. So, who knows what's going to happen if the other guys, if none of those guys get traded, the big name guys, and he comes on the market as the only available pass rusher in that age bracket. I think that number is going to go up. I think he's going to get over 20 a year, but we'll see. What's your thoughts on Josh Sweat?
I mean, he's obviously much younger than Khalil Mack, so definitely in that prime area. But we're still in the same ballpark of Buffalo struggling with the run, and he was ranked. What was it? Let's see. We are 40th against the run last year. So, I mean, you're paying somebody top dollar. I mean, you're basically paying him for, I hate to say like a one-trick pony, but
You are, though. You're paying him to be a special pass rush specialist. The thing with him is he averages 0.44 sacks a game. And that number is like not top level pass rushers. So like your Brian Burns is 0.65, your Jonathan Grenard's like a 0.62. So like 0.44 is still pretty low. So that's the other thing I worry about him too is like, yeah, he's creating pressure, hurries. Like he definitely does. He creates hurries at a higher clip than Brian Burns, than Bryce Huff, than Harold Landry, than Jonathan Grenard. Like,
but
so
is it worth
that's
the price difference of what you're.
right. That's the thing for me. The thing that's nice is he's young, but he's not an early down guy. So then again, we're talking. Then you need someone to play early downs essentially, and he's going to be more your pass rush specialist essentially. So he's a tough one for me, man. Like I really like the player. I just don't know for the cost. Is he the best fit for the Bills?
No, I mean, I had him. We have five. He's fourth on my list right now of choices. I mean, there's a lot of, again, it's same conversation. There's a lot of paths to go besides him. I mean,
yeah.
If we're a week or in a few weeks, we're at the point where there's only two DNs left, then we're having a totally different conversation. We are picking from the beginning of the offseason.
We're also not talking
hits,
like
basically.
Elite pass rusher here, right? We're not talking about one of the top guys. So do you really want to pay? It's like, do I want to pay the market value or the top value for the top guy on the market, even though he's not the top guy? It's kind of like, do you want to buy the most expensive house, in a neighborhood kind of argument, or, it's basically just driving the market up essentially. So I agree with you on him. I think there's better options. Good player. Wouldn't be sad if they signed him. I think you're paying too much for what he's produced so
What you're
far.
gonna get.
Yeah. I think if you can get him under 56, for 3 years, I think that's a good deal. I don't think that's bad at all. I'm just not sure you're going to be able to. So, all right, next guy up is Hassan Reddick. He's going to be 31 this year. He held out for a lot of the year with the Jets trying to get paid because this was his last year. I don't blame the guy for that though. He did have 10 plus sacks in 5 straight years from 2020 to 2020, or I guess 2024 or 2023. Sorry. He's the wrong side of 40 though for a speed guy, and that's what I worry about. He's a little undersized and he's known more for his speed. He did create 2.26 hurries per game though last year, which is still a really good number. Even though part of the year last year was him just like getting reacclimated to the game and, after no training camp and sitting out so much. So I think that number is still really good. He's projected at 1 year, 11.7 million. Now him holding out last year, he did lose out on a bunch of money and he was trying to get a multi-year deal. So I don't know if he's going to want that again. Like is he going to want a multi-year deal? I don't know if that's something I would want to commit to. Now you could probably talk me into like a 3-year, 30 million or something with some incentives, and more cash up front. Maybe he would do that, but I still like the player. I think last year wasn't really reflective of who he is. It might even have saved some tread on his tires. But the thing with him though is he's a pass rush specialist too. He's not an early down guy. So like you talked about with the earlier guys, is what are you paying for? What are you getting? At least this price tag is a little more palatable.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like you said up front, I mean, with what happened last year, it worries me on if he's gonna be there. I mean, I assumed that he wanted to go to, with the New York deal, he was ready to at least play to get paid something. But him losing all that money is kind of makes me weary of having him on my team if I'm the Bills. And like exactly to what you said, he probably wants a long-term contract, same thing he wanted last year. But I think it's even less likely that a team gives him a long-term contract based on what happened last year.
Yeah,
He's kind of, I mean,
I think that's the thing. You got to see where his head's at, see what he
yep.
wants. Um, but I think he's a sneaky dude as far as like, he's kind of like the thing I would like. I would almost pair with like a Khalil Mack or someone else,
Hmm.
right? Like, you know, he's your DN3, and I think he would be a really good DN3, and it would allow you to reduce Groot inside. And that's something that I really want the Bills to get back to. They did not do that very much last year. Um, and then but you would still need someone on the other side. Like I don't think he's your one signed guy, and that's your solution. I think he's
Yep.
your guy you sign and you pair with a draft pick or another one of these guys we're going to talk about.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, it's just like you said, the talent is there. It's just the extra that's possibly coming with it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
Again, I mean, like if he's the only one available at the end of this, the Bills 100% should take a swing on whatever, be definitely way more lenient on paying him what he wants or giving him a multi-year contract just to take the attempt of doing what they need to on the defensive line side, part of the team whenever they're in the Super Bowl window that they're in.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree with you. All right. Next up, one of my favorites, Demarcus Lawrence. Man, um, you talk about a run defender. He's a beast, man. He's a monster on the opposite side. I think him and Rousseau would just be so fun on the outside. Like talk about setting the edges and controlling early downs. He would be part of that plan. Um, he's going to be 33 at the start of the season. Um, he's still a beast on the edge though, and in the pass rush. He only played in 4 games last year, so I do worry about how he's coming back from injury. He did have 3 sacks in those 4 games, though, and he was averaging over 2 hurries per game in those 4 games. But again, I think it matters how he's coming back from that. And then, do you want to pay a 33-year-old or soon to be 33-year-old coming off of an injury shortened season money? So I really like the player. I like his style. This is another one where I would pair with Rousseau, and he would be your early down guy, and then you'd still sign a pass rush specialist or draft someone like that. But really good player, man, and still was playing at a really high level in 2023. 2024 obviously got cut short, but it looked like he was still playing at a high level. What do you think of DeMarcus Lawrence?
I mean, again, like you said earlier, like I mean, the choices in this class are not top tier.
Mm-hmm.
2 year 24 is too high for my taste. Anyways, especially coming off an injury at 32 years old, a foot injury. Obviously very important to have your feet whenever you're a
Yep.
pass rusher. Um, I mean, just looking at his stats, though, I mean, he did play the 4 games. If those numbers would have held, I mean, I know a lot could change, but within 4 games, he was ranked 88th in overall pass rusher. And I mean, he was ranked even lower than that in the run. And again, this goes back to the run again. I mean, it depends on what you're wanting as the Buffalo Bills. But I don't know if you get it down to 2 years, 18, 20, then we're talking a little more, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think you
But
could do a not likely to be earned incentive laden contract with
mm-hmm,
him,
mm-hmm,
with him missing most of last year. You could
yep.
also include the Bills making the playoffs, them making the divisional. Like, there's a lot of stuff you could do in there to lower that number. But as far as a dude who is proven, just nasty, really good player. He's it, but I agree with you. It's coming off the foot injury at 32, turning 33. We want to get younger and faster. Like That's the thing, and you're not doing that here. So if you're going to sign a guy like this, then you have to draft a D end early to pair with him. And so then you have Solomon, a young edge that you're developing, and then you have DeMarcus Lawrence at the end of his career, and then you have Rousseau like kind of right in the middle. So I think that could be a good setup, but I agree with you. I think they'd have to work that contract. Yeah, dude, he ain't gonna be there though. That's the problem.
No, but I mean, I would choose him before I choose Reddick or Sweat, in my opinion. I mean, I would go that route.
Yeah.
And take a chance.
I think he sets a really nice floor because of how he can play against the running on early downs, right? And,
but to your point, you have to have depth behind him if you're going to bring him in. Like it's a two-part
Same with
plan
Khalil Mack, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right, next guy is an interesting one, man. Like I didn't know a ton about this guy, about Malcolm Kuntz. I knew a little bit. I was digging into all these guys, and so I had to do more research. And good player, man. Like good player on the rise, up and coming. He's going to be 27 by the start of the season. He missed all of 2024 with a knee injury. In 2023, though, he played in 17 games with 11 starts. He played 41% of the snaps. He had 8 sacks and 3 forced fumbles. His valuation's all over the place for what contracts would look like. Medicals are really going to matter here, but he played at UB, so a lot of Bills fans are going to know this name, and really showed some flashes that he could be really good. Now I've read some that the Raiders really want to bring him back, and so that could be something to watch out for. But it's a new regime in there, right? And so new front office, new coaching staff. So we'll see, but. If you want to bet on a younger guy and upside, I think he would be really fun. The only issue is I don't really know if I want to pay $20 million for a guy coming off of a knee injury and missed all of last season.
He is my top choice out of this free agent class.
Yes, you think like I do, man. He's got some flashes, man.
He does. I mean, and he was so in 2022 he was unknown. I mean, he didn't start any games in 22. He played in 13, and then he came on at the end of 2023. He finished that year with 8 sacks, but he had 6 sacks over the last 4 weeks in 2023 and 19 pressures. Like, I mean, he just like shot out of a barrel at the end of that season. And I mean, if I'm going to take a swing on anybody in this free agent class that we've talked about already, I feel most comfortable. I guess I would hate to miss out on him more than anybody else. I would hate to be wrong on him versus the other 4 that we discussed so far.
Yeah, and I think that's where the age comes in, right? Like he's 26.
Yeah.
He's 26, going to be 27, right? Like plenty of guys come back from that. He missed all last season, so at this point he should be mostly healed or coming back this off season. That's important, but if you're trying to bet on a guy who's shown flashes and unlimited snaps, I think that's the big thing too. When he's been given his chances, he's really cashed in on that. And he averages over 2 hurries a game, over 4.7 sacks per game, and that's with limited snaps, man. So I really like him too. I really am interested to see like what that contract would look like. But if you're missing out on all the big trade guys and you want a guy that could potentially be a DN1 or a 1A 1B to Rousseau, I think he's the best chance at finding a long-term answer there.
Yeah, no, I agree. It would be hard to not put him at the top of the list for sure. I would love to see it. I just don't know if he's, like you said, I don't know if he's going to leave Las Vegas at this point.
Right. That's the big question mark. And what it would cost, too. I wouldn't want to get in a bidding war with him, but,
Yeah.
I think at that age, like PFF had him at 2 years, $37 million. Spot Rack had him at 2 years, $40 million. So, I mean, I think if you could get him at that 17, 18 million range and then pair it with Rousseau at that same, 18 million, 20 million range, like you could have, 2 quality edge rushers locked up for the price of a Miles Garrett's going to get, or some of
I
these
know.
guys are going to get on their next deals. I mean, they're going to be mid 30s. These
Yep.
next DN deals are going to be crazy. So, yeah, I agree with you, man. The market, you also, that's the thing. You don't see quality edge rushers in their mid 20s, like 26, get to the market. That's the other thing. Like, even that,
Mm.
maybe not even that they've shown the straight production, but even shown the ability to produce, they don't normally make the market. So I think that's where he's an interesting one, and he might be worth the gamble. But again, where the Bills are, they're in a win now, like they want now, and so it's
Yeah.
tough to balance that. Like, you know, he is a little bit of a gamble, and you're hoping, that he keeps continuing to grow and that the upside is there. And so that's a tough one. But if you want to lock in a dude who could potentially be a legit, DN1, like this is your chance, right?
Yeah, I think the upside here is the potential upside is what's so tantalizing whenever you think about him.
Yeah, for sure. And I think there's definitely ways you could work that contract too,
Hmm.
to make it worth it. But yeah, so that was Malcolm Kuntz. He's both of our top choices as far as if we were gonna just grab a straight free agent. Um, all right, next up, we're gonna get into a couple guys that uh, have upside, but have reasons maybe why they haven't reached there. This guy is probably the last straight veteran we got. Um, so Matthew Judon, obviously we're familiar with him from the Patriots, and then he got traded to the Falcons. So he's the last guy of like the over 30s, on the tail end of their career, essentially. He's 33 at the start of the season. He had a quiet season last year on a really bad defense that the whole D line was bad last year. Even like Grady Jarrett had a down year. He had 6 sacks, though, on 58% of the snaps, but he only had 1.1 hurries per game, which is really, really low. His projected cost, though, is very low at 2 years, 8.4 million. He's the kind of guy that I'd want to pair with someone else. So, he would be like your veteran DN, like 3 or 4 that I would bring in, and pair with someone. What's your thoughts on Matthew Judon?
I would want to stay away from him. He was ranked, there's 119 qualifying edge rushers last year, and he was ranked third from the bottom. I think he's getting to the point where he's falling off the cliff. I mean, New England let him go. I mean, I thought that they were going to keep him. I thought he was going to be a piece of that defensive line last year, and they let him go. He goes to Atlanta
Hmm.
because he had 74 and then 70 PFF grades in 22 and 23, and then he had a 43 last year, like a complete
Yeah,
drop off.
and he was not creating pressure on his own either.
No, yeah. I mean, it's just I don't know. There is too much downside here. I feel like this is someone you go after when you've missed on everyone else at this point,
Right.
and you're
He's
just
like kind of like that post June, late addition to camp. Give him a
yeah,
shot, and maybe he can be your DN4 or
yep.
5 guy, or you have an injury or something. I agree with him. He's kind of at that point in his career, then coming off
Hmm.
the down year last year.
It just there's no positive signs of signing him at this point. Like no
Yeah.
reason to think, hey, he's going to do well in our system versus what he did last year, in my
Right.
opinion.
Well, we'll get into a guy that I think has a little more upside, a little younger, coming off a good year, and that's Dante Fowler Jr. He's 30. He's going to be 31 at the start of the season. He's a pass rush specialist. He was 8th in pass rush win rate last year. He had 11 sacks last year. Um, he had 10 sacks total in 22-23, but he only played in 30% or less of the snaps in those years. 1.71 hurries per game, which is low, but he only played in 52% of the snaps. Um, I just kind of worry, are you buying high on him coming off of a high sack year? It was the highest, obviously, of his career, but he played the most snaps. So I don't know, but his pass rush win rate was really good. And if that price is true, I think that's really good for a 30-year-old going to be 31. He's still got something left. What's your thoughts on him as being your kind of DN3 pass rush specialist type guy?
I'm kind of sold on him, honestly. I mean, like you said, he had lower snaps in the 2 years he was in Dallas, around 300 and then 250, and he had 531 this year. And I mean, he had 6 sacks and 4 sacks in those 2 years, and 10 and a half this year. So I mean, his numbers are staying relatively the same. I feel like he just had maybe I don't know, maybe he had a more sense of purpose of playing. I'm not really sure what flipped the switch for him this year, but I mean, for that, like you said, that DN3 option for the bargain bin, I definitely would choose him over some of the others.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is one of those where you take a swing at a guy with, that whatever 5-6 million,
Mm-hmm.
and then you hope it hits, and you hope you cash in on another year like he had last year. But he's shown he can get some sacks and get after it, and that's kind of what the Bills need. They need a pass rush by committee. They need more guys that can get home, and I think it'd be worth the gamble.
Yeah, definitely more to him. I could definitely sleep better at night if I'm a Bills fan signing him versus spending big money and just really hoping. Because I mean, worst thing, at 3 years, 15 million, you're not breaking the bank if it doesn't hit. Whereas if you sign Khalil Mack for, what was it, 3 at 54 or whatever, and he falls off a cliff, then you're
right, and
a lot of money.
you're getting this guy 3 years younger.
Yep.
Off limited snaps as well, so it's not like he's had the same wear and tear. So, all right, this guy's kind of the exact opposite of Fowler. So this is Dayo Adeyingbo from the Colts. His snaps have increased the last 4 years. He's going to be 25. Sacks did not, though. He only had 3 in 24 on 64% of the snaps. He has room to grow. But the market might be too high based on his age and his traits. He had injuries early on in his career, and that really limited him. But he shows flashes that there's something more there. He only had little over one hurry per game average, and I like to see that number a lot higher for a guy who has low sack numbers. The projections are 4 years, 64 million, which I think is just crazy high for a guy who's only had 17 career sacks in 4 years. What's your thoughts on Dayo?
I'm a little confused. I'm confused like you are for that 4 year 64 for him. I mean, he's young, but I mean, outside of that, like, he was 83rd in sack percentage. I mean, paying that amount of money, and I mean, he was also 23rd in QB pressure percentage. Like, he's getting there, so he's not converting once he gets there. Like, what's the issue here? Like, why is it not adding up? And then you're wanting to pay him top dollar for that? Like, I mean, he had the 28th most pass rush snaps. I mean, I just feel like we're really pushing it to get there with him at 464. Like, I don't know where this is coming from.
I think this is for a team with a lot of cap that needs something, and you're hoping you hit here, but you need at least a solid base. Like, he's a good athlete. He's showing there's upside there, and it's kind of like a team that has the cap to burn to sign him. I would be shocked though if a team really did 4 years, 64 million for him. I think it would be more like a 2-year deal or something like that, with maybe some dummy years to make it look like a 4-year 64, but it's really like a 2-year 30 million or something like that with incentives or option years or something. I liked him coming out, but the injuries and then just hasn't been able to put it together. So I think he's a no for Bills, but I think for someone who really needs something and has the cash, I think they should go after him, kind of like a New England or something like that. So yeah. Next guy is Clavon Chason. This is kind of getting into the bargain bin guys now, the young guys. So he's going to be 26 at the start of the season. You're betting on traits here. He's smaller dude, but has the speed to be a pass rush type guy. In 2024, he had 51% of the snaps. In 23, he only had 25% of the snaps. 22, he was injured half the year. He had 5 sacks last year, again, and only 51% of the snaps. He only had 4 starts last year as well. So you're basically betting on a young guy, a cheap pass rusher that you can hopefully get more out of by keeping him in a specific role. He's kind of like that DN4 for me that you would bring in and rotate him through, and again have him, take 35-40% of the snaps in a specific role. But at that price, you could do a lot worse than a guy who's got some good traits.
So he is out of the bargain bin ones. He is my top choice.
Yes, love it.
I mean, my question is, why is he not seeing the field? Because last year he had
Right.
5 sacks on 1.8% sack percentage. So if he was a qualifying player, he would rank 23rd. And just to go back to what we just talked about, the previous guy was 0.7 sack percentage, and we're looking at 1.8% here. So I mean, like, you're gonna pay, what was it projected, 4 years, 64 million for that, but then he's 2 at 7. I mean, this seems like much more bang for your buck. And then he had 11.6% quarterback pressure, which would rank 28. So I mean, if you're taking a flyer, this is also another good
On a
choice,
role
in my
player.
opinion.
That's why he does not play early downs. You do not want him in the early downs, right?
Gotcha.
He
Yep.
is more of your legit pass rush specialist. 6'3", 245, but doesn't really set the run. Doesn't, he's all right at playing the run, but he's not like, you don't want him set there. PFF usually has him in like the 50s.
Yeah.
To low 60s if you like that sort of thing. But like you said, if you can get him into the right role, I think he does produce at a clip that's worth gambling on, right? And like, this is the kind of guy you want as your DN4 that you rotate in, like, in that role. Like, I would want to get him the majority of his snaps specifically in pass rush roles. And again, he's the kind of guy that lets you then reduce one of your bigger ends inside, like Greg Rousseau inside, and then you'd still have your DN2 or 3 to play on the other side. So I really like him. He's one of my favorite guys to go after because he at least raises the floor of your overall group from a pass rush perspective. I think that's what the Bills need. They just need more depth in their rotation for pass rushers. And if you can bring a guy in like this at $3 million who is a better pass rusher than they've had in that DN 4 or 5 role the last few years.
Yep. So to me, if anybody can keep up with this, if you look at the NBA with LeBron James, this is who he reminds me of. LeBron, whenever he was like with the Heat, it's a different age, but LeBron would always get these players on these cheap contracts to come in and just be 3-point specialists.
Yep.
He had, Ray Allen, that's a Hall of Famer, but he had Ray Allen, he had Mike Miller, he had Kyle Korver at one point. He just had those people that came in, they couldn't play defense. Mike Miller and Korver, obviously not, but he would just have those people that they could come in and do that one thing and do it top tier. So, it's almost like that, and they're paying them minimum money. So, if you're trying to build a championship team, you need players of that ilk to come and do that one thing really well for you.
No, I agree with you, and that's part of, like, I think what the Bills have struggled to do is find those role players who will actually produce in that role. And for whatever reason, like injuries or they just haven't produced, they haven't gotten to do that in that role. So I think he'd be a really good piece to add for that legit pass rush specialist that they just haven't had. They've usually found like older guys, bigger body guys. They haven't really gone after the speed guys besides Vaughn. And so I think that's what they need to go after with some of their depth in their edge group, and a guy like Clavon really does that. So,
yep.
All right, here's another interesting one. This is Azeez Ojulari from the Giants. Young dude, often injured though. That's really been the issue with him. When he's been healthy, he's been good. I really liked him coming out. Another pass rush specialist type guy. He's going to be 25 by the start of the season. He's had injuries though in 3 years. He's got 23 sacks though in 46 games. So literally averaging a half a sack a game that he plays in. That's not starting. That's playing in. That's insane productivity. He's had 6 sacks in 2024 in 11 games. So again, more than a half a sack a game on 57% of snaps in those games. 1.32 hurries a game and 0.39 sacks a game last year. And I think 2 years, 15 million for a high upside rusher is you could do a lot worse. So, what's your thoughts on Aziz?
My question was, is he just a product of being trapped behind a great front four in New York with
Right.
Thibodeau, Burns,
Yep.
Dexter Lawrence? You know, I mean, just like everybody else just like overshadowed him and took snaps away from him, and
For
that's
sure.
what we're getting here.
Or
Again,
is he also getting his sacks because those other guys are creating
exactly, yeah,
pressure? So
he's just
yeah,
one
it's
on one.
tough.
Yeah. Again, I mean, I don't know. I like so many more of these bargain bin players than
Right.
ones that are
Right. It's
considered top of the line. I mean, it's just when we
yeah.
talked about them earlier, it's just like, yeah, I could talk myself into it. But all these, it's like I have like some level of intensity and hype to myself about like bringing them to the Bills. If I want them on, if they're on my team as a Buffalo Bills fan, like you have some enthusiasm about it.
Right. I
Whereas
think I think that's something we haven't had is like young guys with upside, like
yeah, yeah.
and speed and traits. Like we haven't really had that, and like that's what I want them to go after as far as like your DN 4-5. Like I don't want my DN 4-5 to be like 33 and at the back end of their career. I want it to be these young dudes with juice and that are going to take advantage of their opportunities. So yeah, I really like him too, man. I really like some of these bargain bin young guys, whether it's Aziz Ojolari, Clavon Chason, Dante Fowler. Like I really like them, man, and even like Hassan Reddick, like we talked about, depending on what he wants from his contract. But
Yeah.
all those guys are pass rush specialists that do one thing really well, and can we give them the opportunity to do it?
Yep. I mean, there's a lot of scenarios where the Bills spend money elsewhere, and then they're almost obligated to
Right.
take one of the three of Chason, Ojulari, or Fowler, and then that's
Right.
still a great outcome in my opinion. Because I mean, it could be much worse, and if you're still getting those while solidifying other areas of need,
Right. Well, and we know Brandon Bean doesn't like to go into the draft with holes.
yeah,
And so right now, like depending on what they do with Vaughn, but sure sounds like they're gonna cut him unless he renegotiates his deal down. Then they're definitely gonna have a spot where they have to get an edge, and these are the kind of edges you would want to go after. 4 to 7 million or whatever, 6 million. That lets you still fill other holes, and you could still draft a guy young if someone falls in your lap. And if you got to cut them, it's still not the end of the deal the way you could structure the deal. So I really like these flyers. I wish we did it more often on young guys, and this year it looks like there is some fun guys that have some upside, and whether it was playing time or injuries or whatever, they haven't got a chance yet to fully blossom.
I agree.
All right, let's look at some. I guess there's one more guy. I don't love him, but we were linked to him during the first few days of the draft combine. There was rumors that the Bills would be interested in Preston Brown. This kind of gets into that what we talked about, like too expensive, old dude, back end of his career, not speed. He's power. And he had a down year, and it's like, I don't really want to go after that. There's better guys with higher upside in free agency that I'd rather go after, or trades. So, what are your thoughts on Preston Brown or Preston Smith? Sorry.
I'm either or, don't want either one of them. I mean,
Yeah,
he was
right,
down in
right.
every category. There's nothing here. Like he had those. His first year in Green Bay was great. He had 12 sacks, and he hasn't replicated that since. I mean, he hasn't.
Yeah.
It was a 14.7% pressure rate that year, and he's reached 12 once. It's been 8, 11, 12, 11, 9% on each year. So, I mean, with this age, like, there's nothing that's like, unless you're just scooping up the scraps that are left at the end of free agency and you're trying to get someone, there is no reason to go out and make him priority number 1, 2, 3, or 4, in my opinion.
Yeah, I totally agree, man. I would rather go after Khalil Mack.
Yeah, yeah.
I'd rather go after some of the older, like I'd rather go after Josh Sweat. I'd rather even go after DeMarcus Lawrence uh, than a Preston Smith. I think he's literally on the tail end. He's not going to give you the run, the upside, and yeah, his sack numbers were way down last year. His hurries were way down last year. His pressures were way down. His tackles were way down. I just don't like betting on a guy like that coming off a down year. I know his snaps were down, but yeah, I don't love the idea.
Yep, I agree.
All right. Now we're getting into some trade targets. So these are guys that have been rumored to be available or not. So we'll cover all these guys just briefly. First up, we'll go with Myles Garrett. Latest news on him. Sorry if this is hard to read. Came out from today, the combine, where the Bills have been named a team that is targeting Myles Garrett, and they are supposed to be putting in a trade package to the Browns that is pretty aggressive. That is the last I'm hearing. I don't know how accurate this is. This is rumors, like central right now. Like right now until March 10th, the start of the legal tampering period, you're gonna hear more rumors and bullshit than you are the rest of the year outside of the week leading up to the draft, which always gets insane as well with rumors and fake news. So I don't know how true this is. I'm sure Brandon Beane is interested. I'm sure they will or have already talked to the Browns about this. But yeah, Myles Garrett's target number one. I hope they go after him. I don't care what it costs. I am all in on board with Myles Garrett. Do you have anything to add for Myles Garrett other than he's amazing?
Yeah, I mean that summarizes it completely. It is good for the Bills. I mean, everyone that's not the Browns, but we're talking Bills here. But it's good that he doubled down on not wanting to take that contract or
Yes.
pay raise in
Yep.
Cleveland.
I agree.
Andrew Berry was like, "Oh, we're not," or he's still saying, "We're not trading him. We're not trading him." And then there was the back and forth of, people start speculating, will he take just a higher, is he truly worried about just a championship or having the opportunity of a championship, or is it just still money driven? And he has
But
doubled
I
down
don't. Does that matter though? Because he's gonna get paid no matter where he goes.
oh yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Right. Like
yeah.
so, it's not like him trying to force his way out and say I want to go to a winner is gonna cost him any money. Like
Mhm.
I think no matter where he goes, he's gonna be paid as DN1. He's gonna be 31. In the season, but
I mean, is
he's
he?
got the type of body and frame, and we've seen edges that can play well into their late 30s. I mean, look at Calais Campbell last year at 38.
Yeah,
But there's been some really good pass rushers that have played in 36, 37 and still had really good years with this type of body, the power body with the frame. It's usually the speed rushers that struggle to age on the edge. So I think he's still got a lot of good football left, and I think he's made a lot of money, and he realizes like he doesn't have a lot of years left, right?
yeah.
He probably has 5 good years left at most. And so, yeah, I think he's going to force his way and force his issue. And I just don't know if the Browns, if they do trade him, do they trade him in the AFC? You heard the Eagles being involved. I'm sure there's other team, Washington. I'm sure there's other teams that would be interested too. I just don't think the Bills would have the capital to compete against some of these other teams, and B, would they want to trade him in the AFC?
I mean, so two things. One, about the money and wanting to play for a championship. I will probably never see this type of money in my entire lifetime, so it's hard to speak on it. But it's like, do you want to remain in a franchise that is horrible in the Cleveland Browns and your family be set for 4 generations, or do you want to go compete for a championship and your family be set for 3 generations instead? You know, I mean, you're
See,
still going to be getting.
I don't think he's losing any money though by going anywhere else.
Yeah. I mean, if he is, it's minimal. You know, it's nothing
Yeah.
that's going to really change.
The only thing that
anything.
would cost them money is like if he had to hold out to force the issue, but
Yeah.
I don't think it gets that far. You know, they could because the Browns are stupid, but they got to trade him before the draft or on draft night to get the most
You don't want
capital
no
because
2026 draft picks.
right.
I mean, yeah, you could get some, but
Exactly.
you want 2025. You want your return to start now, especially if you're
Right.
rebuilding that franchise.
Now, the one thing that goes against the Browns, as usually does, is the cap situation, and they don't actually save cap by trading him. But again, when you're face of your franchise, you know, top whatever 3 to 5 players in the league wants out and is making it public and talking like you got to get him out of your locker, dude. You got to trade him. Like it looks so bad if you force him in, and it's gonna be a story, you know, every day, man. It's going to be a story, you know, leading up to into free agency, leading up to the draft, and yeah, I think
I mean,
it's a
regular
monster
if he
one.
stays, like it's going to be a story all season. I mean,
For
every
sure.
time they lose, every time they win, you know, I mean, no matter what, it's going to be a story.
Yeah.
And I mean,
If
I
he
don't
even plays, like, does he hold
Yeah,
out?
well, yeah. I don't get the not trading him to the AFC portion as or part of this whenever it doesn't matter because the Browns are not going to be competing anytime
You
soon
get as
anyways.
much. I agree with that too. It's the same thing with like the Bills and you know, trading with the Chiefs. Like I think you got to take the best deal to make yourself better
Yeah.
and worry about yourself. Now I think in a division matters because you play them twice, and the division is really important as far as, you know, locking up a playoff spot. But I think as far as in your conference, yeah, I think that's kind of ridiculous to not trade within your conference.
I mean, even at this point, as bad as the Browns are, I would be fine with them trading him in the within the division because even if he plays,
Yeah, because
4
you're a
more
Ravens
years at
fan,
this
dude.
well, yeah, I know that. Besides the point of that, if they want to do that, we can make that work as well.
Right,
But,
exactly. I figured you'd say that. You're the only team that could. The Bengals can, the Steelers can't.
Yeah, so we'll take him. We'll take him off their hands. But you know, I
God,
mean,
that'd be a nightmare.
even if he's still in his prime
Jesus.
for another 4 years, the Browns are probably not competing within the next 4 years. They're going to
Right.
be in the.
I think
Deshaun
that's the
Watson
argument
gap.
why you trade him if you're the Browns. I think
Yeah,
I think
like,
that's
I mean,
you're dead on. I think that's your argument is we're not competing in the next couple years with what happened with Deshaun Watson and all this dead cap and everything we got to do. And you want to set yourself up, I think, for next year's draft is what I would want
Yep.
to do. And I'd want to get as much draft capital for next year. And I know that's not what they want to say or what they want to think. They want to think they can win now, but I think that's stupid. And you just got to cut your losses and
Move on.
start looking forward to the 2026 draft in that season. So
I think the
they're
only
not going
way-
to, though. They're not going to.
the only way that Andrew Berry can make sense of this is if you say, "Oh, I'm gonna get a quarterback like rookie year C.J. Stroud or rookie year Jaden Daniels." Outside of that, like there's no reason to go.
Yeah, but
to
that's
keep
not
Myles
this
Garrett.
draft class. I don't.
Yeah,
think,
exactly.
so.
I mean, there's no scenario where that happens.
All right, so we'll do that with each one of these guys. What do you think? Do you think he gets traded this offseason?
Absolutely.
I think so too.
I say
think,
9 out of 10 trade.
I think with how vocal he is,
9.5.
and then him cutting the contract talks, it's not you can't pay him enough to stay in Cleveland. I think he's the type of guy with his image that he can force his way out.
Yep, I agree.
All right, next up, Micah Parsons. I don't want to spend any time here. The Cowboys aren't going to trade him.
No.
I don't think they will. They would be insane to. I did have some really good discussions last offseason with Cowboys fans in some spaces, and it was really fun. And we were talking about should you pay Dak, or trade Micah Parsons. I was on the get rid of Dak train and keep Parsons and pay him whatever. They were on the keep Dak train and they would rather trade Micah Parsons and get a haul for him, and then be able to build the team around multiple first round picks and whatever you would get for Micah Parsons. I don't think the Cowboys are going to do either. I think they're going to try to pay both of them with CD Lamb, and now we'll get to another piece of news here where they're going to franchise tag supposedly another big time player, and they're going to end up screwing themselves, man, and have a really top heavy roster that's not going to be able to compete like they have been already. So I don't think he's going anywhere. I'm going to leave it at that. I don't want to say anything else about Micah Parsons. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I got 10 seconds to agree with you. I mean, like Jared Jones is not going to trade away a star player. He's too worried about image and value of what he looks like in the media to do something sensible. Not to say that it would be sensible, but he's just worried about names and image. So no.
All right, Max Crosby is the next one up. I'm mixed on this one, man. Like, I definitely don't think they want to get rid of him. I think they want to build now, and he fits with any scheme on any team. You saw them with the trying to go after Stafford. They missed out on Stafford, but that's not a team that wants to trade their cornerstone on defense when you're trying to trade for Stafford. Like, that's not the type of team that would do that. Now, maybe since they missed out on Stafford, they would be more open to it because now there's not really another quarterback near that caliber that they can get. So if it's me and I'm the Raiders, I would think about it just because they're not in a position to get a quarterback this year. I don't think they're going to be good this year, man. And so, if you traded him and got the assets for him, you're setting yourself up more to recoup this year or next year and put yourself into a better position to set up for the future. Now, again, it's really hard to replace a guy like Max Crosby, obviously. He's top 5, in football for edge players, but I don't know. I'm torn. What do you think? You did a deep dive. So for people that don't know, Chase on his show, Chase and Data, is doing a series where he deep dives every week on 2 different teams. And he started with the worst ranked team, and he's going through the whole league, and he's going to break down everything from last year to coaching changes to free agency to the draft and all that stuff. So you did the Raiders. What was your take on it, and what do you think they should do with Crosby?
So I had them ranked 31st. So they are at the bottom of the league. They have a lot of other issues. He was since he's been drafted, he's 5th in sacks. He has almost 60. So I mean, he is top tier talent.
So good. Yeah, and he plays every fucking snap. Like, that's the thing. He's Iron Man, dude. No one else does that. He plays every fucking snap. It is insane.
I wondered, like, how much were they just like kind of giving up on the season last year once he got shut down,
Yep.
But I mean, like, when he's on the field, he is 110%, 100 miles an hour.
Yep.
And I mean,
no matter the score, dude doesn't give
I mean,
shit, man. He plays hard as shit.
Yeah. I would be hard pressed to give up on him. And because I still feel like he wants to be there, and he embodies the Raiders culture. Like, I mean, when you think of Raiders fans, you can put him side by side with them. It would be hard to trade him and keep the fan base intact. Because you have a defensive stud on one side and you have an offensive stud with Brock Bowers, but I would be very, very hesitant. I don't think he gets traded. I think they let
So my counter to that would be is that they have no stars. Like, you just named their only 2 stars. Legit.
I agree.
Only 2 good players. They have nobody else. And so my thing is like, you got to just get players, man. And I know it's hard to get top tier guys like him, but you also need like dudes, man. You need dudes, and he's your chance to get a bunch of draft capital because they don't have a quarterback they can do it with. And so or a wide receiver they can do it with. So he's your chance to get some draft capital and really build that roster, because that roster stinks, man. And you're not just going to be able to replenish that with just a regular class. Like, you need a lot of top tier talent in there and draft capital. And really, it could set you up to be able to get your quarterback this year or next year by having enough capital to trade.
Yeah, I agree with you that you could go either way. I mean, the positive for keeping him is he's only 27 years old. Yeah. He could at any given year be defensive player of the year. Like, I mean, would it just completely blow me away? No. If you want to have some sort of identity or like focal point of what you're building around, do you keep him and bring Kuntz back? They have Christian Wilkins coming back on that defensive line, and they want to just build around that. Sure. I mean,
right. And that's the other argument too, right? Like, if you're going to put in cash and Kuntz and you really think that those 2 guys can be it for you, do you really want to trade Crosby then, and take away that chance? But that's a lot of money to pay Crosby and Kuntz.
Yeah. I mean, and this all goes back to what they're planning to do with the 6th pick. Are they taking Shador? Does Shador make it to 6? Because, I mean, if they are and they want to give him the best chance, then
I think that would be a huge mistake.
Oh yeah, no, I agree. But
They have so many holes, man. They just got to take best player available for
yep,
now until the end of time. Worry about a quarterback later.
yep, I agree. They have a lot of issues, but
Yeah.
I don't know what their plan is internally.
Right.
Do
All
you
right. Well,
trade
let's go
him
to
and
the
get?
next guy
Go
then,
ahead, go ahead,
because
go ahead. Yeah,
I really don't. All right. So
I
we'll
don't
go
think
back
it's
to.
going to
Do you
happen.
think you don't think it's going to happen? All right. I don't
No.
think so either. I don't think. I don't think they can do that. I think they got to keep him there just for, like you said, he's the face of the franchise. They don't
Yep.
have that. If it was me, I would trade him though. Next guy, Trey Hendrickson, beast, dude. I don't know how else to describe him other than a beast. Back to back, what, like 17 plus sack
Yeah.
seasons. Um, came from New Orleans, and a lot of people weren't sure he could produce, and boy, were they wrong. And he's been awesome. Just a absolute stud, man. So hard to contain out there. I don't know what they're gonna do, man. If they're gonna tag T and pay T and Chase and like I don't know how they keep him too. Um, so what's your thoughts on Trey Hendrickson and would you want him? A, I'm sure it's a yes, and then B, do you think he gets traded?
Yes, especially if you're a Bengals fan, because I mean, their defense was obviously the problem last year. So if you
Yeah.
obviously you need him. Point A is that you need him. You need him on the team. Second part of that is the Bengals ownership is so cheap that
Right.
they never want to pay anyone. So that one of two things have to happen. They either going to have to pay him and get out of their ways of the past, or I don't think they're paying both he and T.
Right, and isn't
And
this their chance to get some quality draft capital to then get more talent, young talent that's cheap, especially
yep.
on defense? Like it almost feels like they need a full reset on defense, and I know it's
Mm-hmm.
hard to say that with a top edge guy. Like that's really hard to replace. But you saw last year, like it didn't fricking matter. Like their defense is so depleted and so bad, and they're only losing more guys. They're losing their linebackers now. They're losing. But we're gonna get to their D tackles that they're gonna be losing. And so I just is this their chance to kind of reset on defense? And get capital where they're not going to have a chance to get capital anywhere else, and then also free up the cash. I mean, they like you said, they need that cash.
I mean, it's like you said, they have too many holes on the defense. So I could definitely understand them trading him, but I mean, it's also the fact, like I said, they don't give out big contracts. Like it's so rare. So they're either gonna pay two people, which is not what they do, or in him and T, or they're gonna probably upset Joe Burrow, who's the cap specialist now, talking about how to restructure contracts and add void years and everything else. So I don't know. They're in a bind. They either have to change their ways or upset Joe Burrow. I mean, because I had looked into it a while back. Since 2021, whenever the NFL went to the 17 game schedule, that teams that allowed 400 or more points and had a plus 25 or better point differential, it's them and the 2022 Lions. They both finished 9-8. The Bengals allowed 434 points and had a plus 38 point differential. Like it's just like their offense is amazing. As good as their
Yeah.
offense was, is how bad their defense was. So I mean, it's not like it was like, oh, they can't stop the run. They can't stop the run. They can't stop the short pass. They can't stop the intermediate pass. They can't stop the deep pass. They can't stop play action. It was everything. I
Everything,
mean,
man.
they have a lot of issues that
A
out
lot of
of the four that
injuries
we've talked
too on the
about,
D
yeah,
line. I think that was part of the problem.
out of the four that we've talked about, he's the second most likely to be traded behind Miles Garrett. I
Yeah,
mean, that's fine. Get
I
Miles
agree with
Garrett
that.
and Trey Hendrickson out of the AFC North. I mean, I have
Right,
no
you
problem with
guys
that
would
as a
love
Ravens
that,
fan. Yeah.
man. Yeah. Oh, wrong graphic. Yeah, I agree with you, man. I think Trey Hendrickson has got a really good chance to get out of there. I could also see though they work out some kind of incentive deal or something to get him a little bit more money. I think he likes it there. He said he wants to stay. I wouldn't be shocked if he stayed, but I do agree. I think it's more likely that he goes than stays just because of the money.
Yeah, and his
All
value is
right.
not going to get any higher. So,
That's the other thing, dude. He's older in
yep,
this group. He's 31, going to be 32, and yeah, he's coming off of back-to-back 18 sack seasons, 17 sack seasons. So I don't think his value is ever going to be higher.
correct.
Next up, Bryce Huff. didn't dress for the Super Bowl. Is that right? Did I get that note correct? Um, he'll be
He was not
27.
mentioned.
Yeah, he'll be 27 at the start of the season. Philly just signed him last year, but they sure did not use him. He only played in 33% of the snaps. He started 5 games, and he only played in 12 games total, and that was not because of injury. Um, in 2023, he played in 17 games for the Jets on 42% of the snaps, and he had 10 sacks. Um, Philly really cannot trade him though unless it's a post June 1 trade, because they just signed him last offseason. If they do a pre June 1 trade, they would actually lose $21 million against the cap, so they're not going to do that. Post June 1 though, it saves them $1.1 million on a guy that they didn't use. Now, you could say that they might use him more this year because Brandon Graham's out and Josh Sweat is out, and so they got to do something. But they had him,
Mason
they were
Williams.
paying him, and they didn't use him. So I don't know. I just thought it was an interesting one if they wanted to trade him. Howie does some crazy shit. Post June 1 would make sense if they go out and get one of these big edges, or they draft some guys and they realize okay, we can afford to lose him. I could totally see them post June 1 trading him and recouping some draft capital. So that's kind of my thought on how this gets done. Is it's only if it's after the draft and after free agency, and Howie needs to get some draft capital back, and they replenished the cupboard at D-line. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that he's going to be worth any trade that they would want to do, because it's going to be, like you said, around that time frame whenever someone's needing a high dollar specialist. I mean,
Right.
they
Right.
have no other options, and they need someone toward their Achilles midsummer, something crazy, and they need someone to replace it that is a Super Bowl contending team.
Yeah, our team missed out on guys, didn't get what they wanted.
Mhm.
He's owed 2 years, $34 million. And so it's not like a crazy number. I don't know, man. He's
I
interesting.
I don't know. I think it's gonna be a special situation.
I agree. I think they got to make a big move where they give up draft capital, or they just have to do the Howie and the Philly thing where like 5 DNs fall in their lap or something crazy.
Yeah, I mean, that's unheard of for them. So
right. All right, next up, Harold Landry, not rumored, the team gave him permission to seek a trade. Now, usually that happens with a guy that has a good chance to get cut anyways, so we'll see if he can drum up anything, but he'll be 29 at the start of the season. He cleans up, though, more than he creates pressure. He's not really like a pressure creator. He more cleans up. So that's the only thing with him that's concerning. He does have 32 sacks the last 3 years, 9+ in each of those years. He's got 52 sacks in 6 career seasons. He averages 80+ snaps the last 5 years, so he does play a lot of snaps. If they pre-June 1 cut him, it saves $11 million. He has 2 years, $35 million left on the deal. So I definitely think there's a chance he could get cut if they don't find a trade partner for him. I really like the player. I don't think he's a top caliber guy, but I definitely think he's in there as far as like DN2 essentially, and is able to play a big bulk of the snaps. What's your thoughts on Harold Landry?
This would be great if the price is right, which, I mean, what's the price going to be for him?
Right.
As far as the trade goes, I mean, because the other, like you said, DN2, which, I mean, would fit in fine, because I wonder how much of his production was due to being next to Jeffrey Simmons,
Right.
I mean, he did have 53 stops, which was top 12 in the league last year. So, I mean, an ideal player to plug and play into the Buffalo's front four, but it's just depending on what the Titans are wanting. I mean, he is 29, like you said, so he is on the younger side of the ones that we've discussed on a relatively good deal. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. It depends on what the trade package is and how ugly this gets before he gets let go.
I think that's the big thing for me. Here's the piece of news that I had heard last on him is this one. Giants and Titans are working on a trade for the number one pick, and Harold Landry is supposed to be as part of that deal. I'm guessing as a cap move for the Titans, as well as a little bit of a pick compensation or to increase the pick compensation they'd get from the Giants. Yeah. God, that Giants D line would be nasty though, man. With
So it'd be
Landry,
Burns,
freaking
Thibodeau,
Burns, and Thibodeau,
and Dexter Lawrence.
and Dexter. Yeah, that is gross. So we'll see with him. I think he's an intriguing one, but again, I don't think he's a guy that's going to step in and be your DN1. I think he would step in and be your DN2 on the Bills behind Rousseau, but you're still missing that pass rush specialist. So maybe go after one of those bargain bin guys, those young guys that we talked about that could be a pass rush guy. And I think between, Landry, Rousseau, AJ, and then one of these bargain bin pass rush specialists, and then maybe Solomon. That's a pretty solid group of 5. So, all right, let's get into D tackles now. First up is Sheldon Rankins. He'll be 31 by the start of the year. He had a weird year with Cincinnati, man. He was injured. He only played 7 games. He's kind of like a Daquan Jones type of player for me. Stout in the middle. We'll get a little pass rush from him, but nothing crazy. The price might be too high, though, and the Bills might want to go younger. When he's playing well, though, he's a good player. Last off season, he signed for 2 years, $24 million. I don't think he'll get that much coming off of an injury-plagued season, but do you have anything on Sheldon Rankins?
I'm not interested if I'm a Bills fan.
I agree.
55 overall grade, 115th ranked defensive interior player, and he was 152nd in the run. So I mean, it's just like
and the tail end of his career.
Yeah, I mean, he's more of a pass rush defensive interior player, and I mean, but still, it's not enough to.
And he hasn't been for years.
Yeah. So I mean, no. Next, in my opinion.
All right. Next up is his teammate, who I like a lot more, is B.J. Hill. He'll be 30 by the start of the season, so younger. He played 15 games for Cincinnati last year on a very barren interior line. He played 59% of the snaps. He has 17 sacks over the last 4 years, 50-plus tackles. He's the 30th graded D-line out of 219. He was 33rd in pressures last year as well. He was 22nd out of 219 D-line in run grade. He had the 8th most solo tackles, projected to be 2 years, $18 million. I would love him to be paired with Daquan Jones as your interior defensive line rotation. What's your thoughts on B.J. Hill?
I agree with you. I mean, obviously, I like him much more out of the two from Cincinnati. He's been around a 69, 70 grade for 3 straight years. So I think you're more consistent in what you're getting. Like you kind of know what you're getting out of him versus some of the other options that we're going to discuss. But I mean, at 2 years, 18, that's not bad to me.
In the last 4 years, he's had 22 hurries, 26 hurries, 23 hurries, 25 hurries. So it speaks to like that consistency, like interior pass rush. If he can get anything is great. And I think he consistently does that. And as a run defender, he's stout. He's there. He takes up space. He makes tackles. So yeah, last year was just a bad year for him. I think just that team in general, like he's normally like a 3-4% missed tackle guy. He missed over 10% of his tackles last year. It's just a bad season, but he still played okay. He still played fine with not a lot of help around him.
Yeah.
All right, next up is DJ Jones, a lot of guys' favorite pick for the Bills. He was number 2 in run stop win rate for defensive tackles. He's 58th overall graded out of defensive tackles, 61st in pressures, 31st in pass rush win rate, 58th in run stop grade, 15th with 33 solo tackles. He was 8th in batted passes and 24th in stops. So really solid interior defensive lineman. Um, quality starter and projected for 1 year, 11 million. I think you could do a lot worse. The Bills have got to get better on the defensive line, especially the interior. They have got to get more quality starters in there. It can't be Ed playing 80% of the snaps and Daquan playing 65, 70, and then Scrubs playing 35 to 40%. It is just not good. I think he would be awesome. Either him or BJ Hill would really upgrade the interior of that defensive line.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I had seen 1 year like lower 9 million. So that's like I would take him at 1 and 11, and especially 1-9. So I mean,
For sure.
I think he would be a great fit for what the Bills need.
Yeah, and
Just
I
as
mean,
simple as
even
that.
at his age, I think it's not a bad thing to if you did a multi-year with him, because
Hmm.
you'll have Daquan Jones dropping off after this season. You could
Hmm.
even post June 1 Daquan Jones if you sign someone like DJ Jones and then drafted. This is a really good draft for interior D line. And so if a couple guys fall in your lap and you get a 3 tech and a 1 tech and you're looking too fat there, then you could always post June 1 Daquan Jones, and I think you get like 6 or 7 million, and that would give you your operating costs for during the season, to free up some younger guys. But he's really good, man. I really like him on the interior as your run stop, 1 tech essentially.
Hmm. I agree.
All right, next up is Javon Kinlaw. I was surprised to see, his some of his advanced metrics and numbers. I was not expecting to see him have as good of a year. 27 years old. He's 6'5", 320 pounds. He was 38th in pressures, 28th in solo tackles, 23rd in sacks. He was first in forced fumbles, 38th in total pressures, 27th in stops. He was 15th in defensive tackle pass rush win rate. His run D is pretty average, though. He played on a 1 year, $7.25 million year last year with the Jets. He's got no projection that I've seen this year. So I'm not sure what he would go for. Any ideas with Javon Kinlaw?
I mean, I feel like it could be worse. This is middle of the pack for me, but I mean,
By the way, that
he
age
played
on the
over.
graphic is wrong. He's 27. He'll turn 28 on October 3rd. So he's still a young guy.
He played over
But go
700
ahead.
snaps last year. So I mean, health wise,
Yep.
ideal compared to some of the other ones. So if you could get him at 1 year, 7 million again, yes, yes.
I think he's if you're gonna keep Daquan Jones and you want a
Mhm.
solid guy to rotate with him, I think this is your guy that you would pair with him. You have Daquan Jones play 50%, and you have Javon Kinlaw play 50%, something like that. Depending on who's playing better or hotter, you might rotate that around, or depending on your opponent. But um, younger dude who can eat up the snaps. He's good enough in run D, but good pass rush, man. And I'd really like to see like maybe Daquan Jones in earlier downs and then Kinlaw in later downs. I think it depends on price for me and how the rest of the market shakes out. But I do agree with you. He's kind of like that second tier rotational guy that you would bring in. He's not a guy you bring in and that you'd want to, give 60+% of your snaps to.
Yep.
All right, next guy, we're gonna get a little more expensive on the next two. Next guy is Levi Onwuzurike. No idea if I pronounced that
That is
correctly.
exact 100% correct. You just said it slow, but it was spot on.
Well, I am slow. So, 27 years old. He's a pass rush 3 tech, 33rd overall defensive lineman out of 219. He was 46th in pass rush, 41st in run D, 15th in total pressures, 16th in hurries, 7th in hits. Dude's good, man.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts? That projection is definitely not right for his cash.
Yeah.
His cash
Yeah.
money.
Yeah. 12.5% pass rush win rate is ideal to say the least.
Yeah.
70.2 grade, which is 25th amongst defensive interior players. So I mean,
I don't understand it. Like you go to Spot Rack and they have him projected for 2 years, 9 million. Like,
Yep. That's what I'm
how?
saying. So, I mean,
Like,
I don't.
what? It makes no sense to me. I don't understand it. What are we missing here?
I know exactly. It was my exact thoughts because when I was, doing a little prep work, I was like, man, it's not, there's something that's not right here. Did I miss some storyline that
Right.
goes
He
along with
played in
him?
16 games last year, 9 starts. He had 53% of the snaps. Like, I understand he's not a sack guy, but I don't know. I think he's a good player. It's just there's something more that we're missing there.
If that's
I'm
the
not sure.
if that's the true projection, like I mean, 32 teams are going to be lining up to offer him that. I mean,
Right, right, right. Exactly. I agree. I don't. I just don't. I don't know. There's got to be a reason why he didn't play more in Detroit. I don't know the stories there behind that. Um, 2022, he had back issues, and so he missed 2022. Um, so I'm not sure. And then 2023, he played in 10 games. He didn't have any starts though, only 132 snaps. So there's something going on in 23 as well. 2024 though, like we said, he played 16 games, 587 snaps, 53% of the snaps. So I'm not sure if it's injuries that's driving his price down. We'll see when he hits the market. But yeah, like you said, at that price, like that is insanely cheap for a defensive tackle that plays the run and pass well. Like, so
yeah.
I'll be interested to
I
see what
mean,
the market is for him.
him being 15th in total pressures. I mean, imagine what he could have gotten up to if Aiden Hutchinson was healthy the entire year.
Right,
I
right.
mean, it would only go
His
up because
sack
you would have
numbers would be
less
a lot
focus.
higher. Yeah,
Yeah. So I
for
mean,
sure.
I don't know. I don't get it.
Yeah, he's an enigma for me, man. I don't know. All right, let's go to the next one. Osa Odigizui from the Cowboys. 27 years old, pass rush 3 tech. He's similar to Levi, but on a whole nother level, just because of the snaps and how much he's proven his production. I'd say he's even above like Milton Williams of the Eagles. Um, I didn't make a slide for Milton Williams. I guess we can kind of talk about that now because I think his number's just going to be way too high for what he's produced. I guess I could have made one, but I just don't think we're going to be in the market for a top tier 3 tech. I only included Osa just because he's fun to talk about, and I wanted to include one of these guys because we'll just lump them into one bucket. I don't think the Bills have Ed Oliver. Like this is kind of these teams Ed Oliver type player, and so I don't think it's in the Bills market, but they're similar players, so I wanted to talk about them. Osa's 20.
Well,
Go ahead.
sorry, it's just to butt in. Sorry, but the Cowboys come out and said that they're planning to franchise tag him.
Right, I got that on here. That's what I was going to talk about after we talked
Sorry.
about him a little bit. No, you're good. So
Okay.
the rumor that came out today is that the Cowboys plan to use the franchise tag on him if they can't reach a long-term deal by Tuesday. That's usually more of like a negotiation tactic, right? You leak that now, gives you 2 days to try to figure out a deal before that. I don't think they want to pay him 25 million hard on the franchise tag. But he is a really good player. Some stats about him. He's 38th overall for defensive tackles, 11th pass rush grade, but 116th in run D grade. So he's really a pass rush specialist type guy. He's 15th in solo tackles, though, 12th in sacks, 3rd in total pressures, 5th in hurries, and he had the second most total snaps for defensive tackles. He's 12th in defensive tackle pass rush win rate. So it's a guy to compare to like Ed Oliver and what he would get on the market. Very similar type player. I don't think the Bills will be in on him or Milton Williams, but just wanted to touch on them since they're kind of the big names in this free agency class. Last guy to talk about in the free agent markets is Tyir Tart, 28 years old. He was graded 17th overall out of defensive tackles, 19th in pass rush grade, 21st in run grade. He was 64th in solo tackles, 32nd in batted passes, and 65th in pressures. He didn't play a ton of snaps for the Chargers, but when he did, he played well. Any thoughts on Tart?
Yes, if he can stay on the field. I mean,
Right.
He played 17 games, had 0 starts, but like you said, he was graded well. I mean, 17th And I mean, in the run, I mean, it's just ridiculous where he was at. I mean,
He's a
like
run
your numbers.
stopper. He's not a pressure
Yeah.
guy.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, but I mean, if that's what it's the same thing with the Clavon Chason
right,
scenario earlier. You're paying this
right,
guy to come in and do that one thing and do it well. And if
right.
he can do that, great.
If you spent money elsewhere and you needed a one tech to come in and eat space and play
Yep.
the run, and rotate in with Daquan Jones, I think this would be your guy. So, um, yeah. Should we get to the trade targets?
Let's do it.
All right, so this is the trade targets for defensive tackles. There's other guys out there. These are just the guys that one, Jonathan Allen was given permission to seek a trade. Another guy that might get cut. And then Jeffrey Simmons is just more of like a pipe dream speculation. So we'll start with Jonathan Allen. What's your thoughts on Jonathan Allen?
I mean, I feel like I don't know. I'm hesitant on him on trying to trade for him because Washington obviously has moved on from him. They feel good with Newton that they drafted last year out of Illinois to take his place. I'm assuming,
Yep.
I mean, he had one. The numbers seem to suggest like a drop off. He had
Yeah.
one
Oh,
quick quarterback pressure.
the last
Even
2 years, you could see a
yeah,
clear drop off, right, in his numbers.
exactly. I mean, he played 1/3 of the snaps, but I mean, he had 20 plus in the three seasons prior, and his quarterback pressure rates down. Also, it's just like there's nothing that is enticing for me as
Yeah.
far as athleticism wise, anyways.
Yeah, his sack numbers have declined in 4 straight years. His tackles have declined in 5 straight years. Um, even his grading, if you go by PFF, if you're into that thing, his pass rush grade has declined in 4 straight years. Um, and so I worry about his run D has really fell off the last 2 years. So yeah, at his current price tag, I wouldn't want to be anywhere near it. I just worry about his health, man. Like started 7 games last year, 301 snaps, 58%. He's had 23 sacks over the last 3 full seasons, but again, it's gotten worse every year. He's got 1 year, 16.3 million left. I think he's kind of one of those guys. If he gets cut, then you maybe kick the tires on him and see what he would play for. But
Hmm.
he's a far cry from what he was 2, 3 years ago.
Yep, I would definitely rather take a shot in the dark with a late draft pick or multiple late draft picks.
Especially in
Than
this class, right, where
yeah,
it's supposed to be
so
loaded.
yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. All right, let's get to my dream for the last 4 or 5 years is Jeffrey Simmons. I'm not sure if they would trade him. I don't think they would. I wouldn't if I were them. He's 27. He turns 28 in the middle of the summer. Um, really good player, man. Um, and I would love if he was available. Um, Last year he was 80th or an 80 grade for overall, 73 run D, 81 pressure, which is extremely high. Um, Really good player, 5 sacks, 34 hurries. What's your thoughts on Big Jeffrey Simmons?
Yes, if available. Like, I mean, if you don't get Miles Garrett, then you start looking into this as option two. I wouldn't say 1A, 1B, but option
I
two.
I would actually agree. I think that's well said. I think he is that high for me. I think
Hmm.
outside of Garrett, Crosby, and Hendrickson, Simmons is right there. I mean he's right there. He is a game wrecker in the middle, like Chris Jones esque.
Yep.
It would be a really good compliment for Ed and for Rousseau. Instantly makes you way more stout on the interior. He's 6'4", 305 pounds. Really, really strong dude. Um, yeah, I really like it. I don't care what the cost was. I'd pay it. So he has 28 sacks in the last 4 years. He was 8th in run stop win rate last year, 10th in pass rush win rate. He was 6th graded pass rusher, 14th graded run defense grade. He was 1st in solo tackles, 15th in total pressures, 8th in batted passes, 12th in hurries. He does everything well, man. If they traded him pre-June 1, they would save 8.4 million on the cap. He's got 3 years, 60.5 million left on the deal. Um, his base for 2025 is 17.5 million. He's worth every penny. And I think this would just be if the Titans wanted to accumulate as much capital as possible for next year quarterback. That's kind of what I would think, especially if they're planning to trade back and trade Landry. That means that they don't like these quarterbacks. And I think that this would, set them up even more for next year to go after whoever they wanted and be just completely stacked with picks.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, whenever I was doing my deep dive on the Titans, if they get rid of him, they have literally no one to build around.
I
Tavondre Sweat.
agree.
I mean,
Yeah.
because their top players: Calvin Ridley, Tony Pollard, Jeffrey Simmons, Tavondre Sweat. I mean, if you
And
take him
he's
out of
not
there,
30. He's 27, going to be 28. I think that's the big thing. It's exactly the Max Crosby type
yeah,
argument.
yep,
If these dudes were 30, 31, where Garrett is, I think that's the difference with Miles Garrett and even a Trey Hendrickson. They're
mhm,
over 30. And so it's like, are you going to be, ready in the next 2 or 3 years to compete and be ready? I think for the Bengals, they can say yes, but they need so much on their defense and they got to save money wherever they can. That's the only argument for them. But the Titans and the Raiders are very similar, in that they need good players, man. You don't want to just get rid of good players who are still in, 27,
yep.
28. So
I agree. I just don't see that one happening, but you never know.
I agree. All right, last little bit of news, I guess you could call it. So next week I'm gonna go into the wide receivers and cornerbacks, and we're gonna do the same kind of thing. And I'll probably include safeties too. So I might just do defensive backs and wide receivers because I think the Bills will add a safety just if they don't bring DeMar Hamlin back. Um, so we'll do that next week. But there is one player that has been rumored to been getting a lot of interest and might be available. So I wanted to get your quick thoughts on it. DK Metcalf is rumored to possibly be available, and the Bills are one of the teams checking in on it. He's 27 years old, 18 million base salary. The trade would save Seattle 10.8 million, and they're pretty cash strapped. They really do need to figure out some things with the cap. He wasn't happy with the offensive scheme last year. What's your thoughts on a DK Metcalf trade, and what do you think it would cost?
I mean, what the Packers rumor was one of their, I think it was Dobbs in the first, which is like a 23rd pick ish, wherever
That's
they're
what
at.
Seattle wanted in
Yeah,
rumors, but
yeah.
there's no way that's what they would get, right?
No, I mean, just looking at it as generally speaking, it's what the Bills need. A wide receiver, a big wide receiver one. They didn't get it.
With
I say
speed, right?
Keon Coleman is,
Downfield
yeah,
threat on the
exactly.
outside. And he would pair so well with Keon, dude.
Yeah,
You
put
know,
him in
that's,
that secondary position. I mean, I don't not
yep.
to say Keon's not going to become that dominant force as
But
your
they're
number
different
go-to,
style
but
players, though. Like,
yeah, yeah. I mean, he would just
Metcalf is a
fit.
down the field speed guy, right? And Keon's going to be more of like your possession guy. I think the
Yep.
slants, the over routes, and then you'll use him selectively on 50-50 balls, but he doesn't stretch the field. But that's a lot of beef at wide receiver, man. A lot of size. You can block with those guys too. And then it pairs well with Shakir. Yeah, dude, it'd be a great fit.
I mean, it would just like to me, it would be like the final piece to solidify that offense. But I mean,
I
you have to
agree.
do this. It's still like what's been the overarching theme of this entire show is that the fact that the Bills are going need to go for Miles Garrett as Plan A.
Right. Yeah, but
You do.
I would give up a first round pick for Metcalf just immediately, just because, like you said, is what it does for the offense. Like
Yeah.
it ties a bow on it. The offense is done, and then I'm just pumping everything else into the defense. And this is a really good defensive line draft class. And as much as I want one of those top guys, I
Mhm.
just don't think it's gonna happen, man. I just don't. And so, yeah, if you could make this happen, I think it would be fantastic. It is exactly what they're missing, and then yeah, you just put all your other assets into defense.
Yeah. I mean, just think how good he has been with Geno Smith lately, and how
Right.
much better he could be with Josh Allen.
Right. Yeah, just
mean,
the focus he would demand. You
Yeah.
got to put a safety over there. You're putting your top corner over there. It would open up so much for Shakir,
yeah, that's
Kincaid, like
exactly what I was thinking. Yep. So
Keon.
much
Like,
underneath.
oh,
Yeah, it was just, yeah.
you just isolate them on the open field side, right? And just say, all right, good luck covering them in all this space, guys. And then,
Mm-hmm.
it'd be awesome. So, all right, well, we'll touch more on that next week. So next Sunday will be the next show. We'll see who joins me. It might be Don. It might be Chase. It might be just myself. I might go out and find a random guest. Who knows? But we're going to do wide receivers, corners, and safeties next week. Do a deep dive on free agents and trade candidates. Do a quick message from our sponsors real quick.
For the best Italian food in Western New York, Elliot Apollo's, call 716-825-3675. The Lardon Construction Group.
Fubo TV, the official streaming service of Do Champions. FanDuel, the official sportsbook of Do Champions.
For all your summertime needs, beauty pools, as well as kayak pools.
CX Chronicles, your total customer solutions focused manager. W.GG, the official energy drink of Do Champions.
Hey, Sons of Erie, our artwork looks better on your walls. Hamburg Brewing, please visit our tap room on Boston State Road, Hamburg, New York. And finally,
Fat Boy Surf Club for all your surfing needs.
All right, well, it took us an hour and 46 minutes in for me to put Chase's Twitter handle there on the bottom. But
Oh, good.
thanks, Chase, for joining me. Why don't you tell everyone what you got coming up next? Your show is when and where can they find
Thursday, every Thursday at 9:30 Eastern, 8:30 Central. So we are 4 teams in. We've done 32, 31, 30, and 29. And this week we're actually focusing just on one team. Being that I'm from Louisiana, we had to spend a whole episode on this team. Hint,
you?
hint.
They're so dysfunctional that you need
Yeah,
a whole
yeah.
episode. Holy,
Yeah,
why
it's a lot
why
to
the
talk about.
hell? Well, I cannot wait to tap in and learn why the F they would commit themselves to Derek Carr for more pain and punishment. I cannot wait.
One of the many questions that don't really doesn't really have an answer. I mean, it is. It's going to be interesting.
Is
yeah,
the
it's
Earth round? Did we land on the moon?
yeah.
Is the
So,
Bermuda
we're-
Triangle real? And why would you commit to Derek Carr for another season?
We're going to work our way through that episode, and then we're going to get all the way through up to number 1 through the off season, and then we got a few other things coming up. Obviously, with free agency, we'll do some special episodes on that, and the draft, obviously, and then before you know it, we'll be back into training camp. So, yeah, like Jake said, you can follow me on X, King NFL Stats. That's on any social platform. Just look for that, and you'll be able to find me. And glad to be on again. Always love to be on here talking with another analytic mind about the NFL.
Yeah, sorry I stole a bunch of your stats for this.
I mean,
this
it's all
episode,
good.
man.
It's all good.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us. Make sure you tune in to both our shows next week. And make sure you like, follow, subscribe, all that. It really helps us out, helps the algorithm. And have a great week. We'll see you guys next week. Thanks again for tuning in.
Come on, man. Only on Do Champion Network.
Everything you need, nothing you don't. Some may like if you just won't. Everything you need, nothing you don't. Some may like if you just won't. Buffalo blueprint for analytics and new shit. Check that in hand, mic in his hand. Welcome to the Buffalo blueprint. Everything you need. Everything you need. Everything you need, nothing you don't. Some may like if you just won't. Everything you need, nothing you don't. Some may like if you just won't. Buffalo blueprint for analytics and new shit. Jake pen in hand, mic in his hand. Welcome to the Buffalo blueprint. Everything you need.